Sika curled on the floor, her hair now reaching the walls, the ceiling, and the corners of the room. In a peaceful African village where the wind whispered ancient secrets, lived a beautiful young woman called Sika. Since birth, her scalp had been as smooth as polished stone. Not a single strand of hair had ever grown from her head. Her parents had tried all sorts of herbs and cures, but nothing worked. In a village where a woman's beauty was determined by her hair, Sika became a subject of ridicule and cruel jokes. The children would run after her, taunting her and calling her names. "Hey, Madam Cobra Head, where do you think you're going?" The men avoided her, laughing when she passed. "A woman without hair, who would marry such a thing?" they sneered. Obeng, her childhood friend, was the only one who stood by her side. When people mocked her, he defended her. When she cried, he reminded her that beauty was more than just hair. But Obeng's words were never enough for Sika. She wished to be like the other women in the village, to have long flowing hair, to marry a noble husband, and to live a life where she wasn't treated as an outcast. One fateful evening, a strange man arrived at Sika's home, claiming to have a cure for her baldness. His name was Nana Osei, a wealthy merchant known throughout the village. He had come with a proposition that would change Sika's life forever.
"I have heard of your misfortunes, Sika, and I wish to take away your shame.
Sika blinked in confusion.
What do you mean?
Marry me, and I will cure your baldness. I will give you hair that is thick, long, and beautiful. I will make you whole and give you a better life."
Sika's breath caught in her throat. Her parents were overjoyed. Her mother wept with happiness, calling it a blessing from the ancestors. Their daughter, the one they had feared would never marry, had been chosen by a man of wealth and influence. Sika could barely believe it. A husband, and a cure for her baldness? It was a dream come true. When Obeng heard the news of Sika's marriage, he quickly rushed to her home, his heart pounding.
Sika, you must not marry that man.
Why not?
Haven't you heard his name before? He is rumored to be a dangerous ritualist. He has been married 5 times, and all his wives disappeared without a trace.
Sika's face hardened.
Obeng, why are you trying to block my blessings? You have always been here, but what have you ever done to help my situation? Now that someone wants to marry me and cure my illness, you are trying to stop me. I won't let you ruin this for me.
Obeng's heart ached. He had always loved Sika, but fear had kept him from asking for her hand in marriage. And now he watched in horror as she prepared to marry a dangerous man who could destroy her. The wedding day arrived, and Sika became Nana Osei's new wife. That night, when they were finally alone, Nana Osei presented her with a small clay pot. "Drink this," he said. "It will give you what you desire." With trembling hands, Sika drank from the pot. A strange warmth spread through her body. Her skin tingled, her scalp burned, and suddenly she passed out. When she woke the next morning, something was different. She saw strands of hair beginning to sprout on her head. In just a month, Sika's head was covered in thick, lustrous hair that cascaded down her back. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in her life, she felt beautiful. When she stepped outside, the villagers gasped. People stopped in their tracks. "Is that Sika? She has hair now," they murmured. They had never seen her like this, her baldness replaced by a crown of shimmering black hair. Sika walked with her head held high, savoring the admiration in their eyes. Obeng stood nearby, watching her in awe. But as he stared at her, he noticed something very strange. The hair seemed to move on its own. He approached her with a concerned expression.
"Sika, you look beautiful, but something doesn't seem right."
Sika rolled her eyes.
Not this again, Obeng. Can't you just be happy for me?
She turned and began to walk away, feeling proud and on top of the world. But then, as she walked, she too began to notice something unsettling. At first, it was just a slight tingling on her scalp, and then she noticed how the hair seemed to grow longer with every step she took. It moved around her shoulders and waist as if trying to claim her. She tried to brush it off as nothing, but as she walked, the movements in her hair grew stronger. Fear gripped Sika's heart and she began to run, screaming in terror. She rushed inside her home and ran to the mirror. What she saw made her blood run cold. Her hair was quickly coming alive, growing faster and faster. It moved around her shoulders and coiled around her fingers like writhing snakes.
What is happening to me?
She cried. Then the whispers began.
We are here. We are here.
Her eyes widened in horror. She hurriedly grabbed a pair of scissors and began cutting the hair, her hands trembling as the hair fell to the floor. But for every strand she cut, 2 more grew in its place. The whispers became screams, filling her head with a chaos she couldn't escape.
We are here. We are here.
She dropped the scissors, trembling. When Nana Osei returned, he found Sika curled on the floor, her hair now reaching the walls, the ceiling, the corners of the room.
What? What have you done to me?
She sobbed. Nana Osei laughed, a wicked triumphant laughter.
What I gave you was no hair, Sika. I gave you evil spirits. You have been possessed by evil spirits who are dwelling on your desire for hair. And now because of you, I will continue to be the richest man in this village.
Sika didn't fully understand Nana Osei's words. All she knew was that she was in serious trouble. She tried to run, but he grabbed her wrist and dragged her back into the room. He locked the door behind him, leaving Sika alone with her terrifying hair. The next morning, Sika sat curled in the corner, her fear increasing as the serpents in her hair began to whisper something terrifying.
We are hungry. Feed us.
At that moment, the door creaked open, and Nana Osei stepped inside. 2 villagers were dragged in behind him, their hands bound, their faces pale with terror. Sika's breath hitched.
The serpent spirits are hungry.
Nana Osei began.
I need to feed them to get what I want.
He gestured toward the prisoners, and Sika's hair responded instantly. It lunged forward and grabbed them, consuming them instantly. Sika turned away, tears streaming down her face as the villagers were consumed by her hair. When it was over, the serpents in her hair began to vomit money onto the floor. Nana Osei laughed in delight. He knelt, scooping the money into his hands, his eyes glistening with greed.
You see, Sika, you are a gift, a vessel for my wealth.
She shook her head violently.
I don't want this. Please, let me go.
It's too late.
He said, standing tall. He then turned toward the door and left. Sika lost count of how many people were brought in and fed to her hair. Day after day, her hair consumed them. Day after day, her husband's wealth grew. Her body grew weak. Her once radiant face became gaunt and pale. She had longed for beauty, for love, for acceptance, but instead, she had become a monster. As the days passed, the villagers began to talk. Where is Sika? Why hasn't she stepped outside to flaunt her beauty? Her parents believed she was simply enjoying her new life. She is finally happy, they said. But Obeng knew better. Something was definitely wrong. He began to watch Nana Osei's home, sneaking around its edges, listening, waiting. Then one night, he saw something that sent shivers down his spine. A group of bound villagers being dragged into the house under the cover of darkness. His blood ran cold. Something sinister was happening, and he needed to act fast. One evening, while Nana Osei was away, Obeng crept into the house. He moved silently, his heart pounding. The house was eerily quiet. When he walked into the dimly lit room, he froze. Sika sat in the corner, her body skeletal, her face ghostly pale. But it was her hair that sent shivers down his spine. It was moving. The strands twisted and coiled like living snakes, slithering around her. Obeng's breath caught in his throat. Sika lifted her weary eyes and saw him.
Obeng, help me. Please save me.
She whispered. He took a step forward, but the hair suddenly lunged at him. He stumbled back as the strands snapped at him like fangs, narrowly missing his face. Terror gripped him. He turned and ran for his life. Obeng burst into Sika's family home, his chest heaving. Sika is in danger, he cried. Her parents gasped in horror. The village elders were gathered immediately. At first, they were skeptical, but the weight of Obeng's words and the absence of Sika convinced them to investigate. The elders, armed with talismans and sacred herbs, stormed Nana Osei's compound. What they found horrified them. Sika was barely alive, her hair a writhing mass of darkness. The floor was stained with blood, and the air reeked of death. The elders poured sacred water on Sika's head. They performed rituals to sever the connection between her and the serpent spirits. Slowly, the hair began to wither and fall away, the whispers fading into silence. When Nana Ose returned home, the villagers seized him. He didn't need a trial, his fate was sealed. Right there in front of everyone, he was sentenced to death for what he had done to Sika and for all the lives he had taken. As Sika was being carried home, the villagers, ashamed of how they had treated her, rallied around her, offering their support and apologies. As Sika recovered, Obeng never left her side. He cared for her, protected her, and spoke softly to comfort her when she woke up screaming. One day, as she sat outside, feeling the wind against her bare scalp, she looked at him and realized,
I had all I needed this whole time, but I failed to see it. I'm so sorry, Obeng.
Obeng smiled.
You don't have to apologize, Sika. All that matters is that you are safe.
Sika took his hand. For the first time in her life, she no longer longed for hair, for beauty, or for people's acceptance. She had found something far more precious, peace, freedom, and a true love that saw beyond her appearance. Moral of the story: true worth is not found in beauty or the approval of others, but in self-acceptance and the love of those who see us for who we truly are.